Parents throw a party to celebrate me leaving the house and don't invite me as this is the fresh start to their new family. But the next month, they see the news of the success of my business about me on the newspaper and accuse me of never telling them. Boy, do I have a party to throw this time. My parents have never liked me. You see, they were high school sweethearts and even went to the same college. They had big plans to travel the world and experience different cultures, but all those dreams were shattered when my mother found out that she was pregnant when they were still in college. They wanted to terminate the pregnancy, but their parents did not allow them to do so. Eventually, my mother had to drop out of college to stay with her parents because she could not take all the people staring and gossiping about her. This is how I was born. My mother hated me, but my grandparents absolutely adored me. For a very long while, I thought my mother was actually my sister and my grandparents were my parents, since my mother never spent any time with me. She would ignore me or scream at me if I tried to get her attention. My dad would also never come and see me, so I had no idea that he even existed. My parents were still dating during this time. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand that my parents did not want a child, but I was just a child and I did not understand their hate for me. Nevertheless, my mom's parents and dad's parents would spend time with me, babysit me, and treat me well. By the time my dad graduated college, I had started to walk and talk a bit. I guess this is when he started to feel a bit guilty for not being there for me. He started to come every weekend to visit me. I thought he was just a friend of my grandparents. My mother hated seeing my dad spending time with me and would always tell him how it was best to just ignore me. But my grandparents encouraged my dad to get to know me, and this is how I found out about who my real dad was. Once he got a job, he proposed to my mom and they moved in together. My dad wanted me to move in with them so they could start taking care of me, but my mom was vehemently against this. My grandparents were getting old and wanted my parents to take responsibility for their own actions. Begrudgingly, my parents stepped up for me, and at the age of 5, I moved in with them. To say that I hated living with my parents would be an understatement. It was like all the light and goodness in my life disappeared and was replaced by dark and gloomy clouds. Every day, my mother would remind me that I should be thankful for staying at their place, and if I did something wrong, she would kick me out. My dad was working the whole day and would come home late at night. If I wanted to spend time with him, he would tell me how he needed some time alone and would urge me to go to bed, telling me that he didn't have the bandwidth to handle me that day. I went from living with my loving grandparents to living with my parents, who absolutely despised me. Now, I was too young to understand, but I did understand how unwanted I felt at their place. My parents would buy me no toys and no ice creams like every other kid. Sometimes I would go to school without my assignment being completed, so then my teacher would call up my mom to question her about it. My mom would later scream at me that I was a lazy person and that I should take responsibility for my own studies. I was so terrified of my mom that I started to do my own homework as best as I could every day after school because I thought doing so would make her accept me eventually. But she never did. My dad didn't care a single penny about what I was doing the whole day or how well I was doing in school, and continued to live his life in his own bubble. When I started growing up, I slowly started to understand how different my parents were compared to other kids' parents. I would see other parents drop off their kids, hug them, kiss them, and smile at them. I never had any of that. It was like I was living with two strangers, and this made me question if I wasn't the biological kid of my parents, perhaps. I would question my grandparents whenever I went to visit them, and they would assure me that I was very much my parents' child and would tell me that my parents just needed some time to grow up. Meanwhile, my mother would say hurtful things to me whenever she could. She would make fun of my hair, my glasses, and my weight, and would tell me things like if she was in high school with me, then she would have bullied me so much, which was just weird to hear. I remember that I have always been allergic to milk, and my grandparents have known this as well, but my mother would refuse to accept that, and one day she forced me to drink milk, telling me how I was just making up my allergies to try to be cool, and how kids her time never had any allergies, which then resulted in me being admitted to the hospital. My mother got shaken up when police officers came to talk to her about the incident, and after that, she learned her lesson and never gave me any milk. My dad also yelled at her about it, and she started to cry. My grandparents had rushed to the hospital to be with me, and there was a lot of discussion while I was recovering. After this incident, my parents softened a bit towards me. My mother started to wake me up for school and help me get ready, and my dad would spend time with me in the evenings and tuck me into bed. I don't know what flipped inside them, but they started to treat me like a human. It was weird to see my mom ask me about school or my dad invite me to watch football games with him. This is how I started to get to know my parents better. I think I was born with a lot of empathy because I didn't hold any resentment for my parents whatsoever. The three of us would go to the beach sometimes on the weekends, which is still one of my favorite memories. I was no longer jealous of the kids in my class because my parents also started to treat me with some love. When I turned 15, I realized that I had a knack for crocheting, which my grandma, mom's mother, had started to teach me. My grandpa had passed away by this time, and my grandma would sometimes crochet and sell her beautiful handmade creations at the local craft. My grandpa had passed away by this time, and my grandma would sometimes crochet and sell her beautiful handmade creations at the local craft fair every year to earn a few $100. The intricate patterns and vibrant colors she used would fascinate me, and I would eagerly absorb every detail of her craft. As I spent more time honing my crocheting skills under her guidance, a deep passion for creating unique and personalized items began to bloom within me. One day, inspired by my grandmother's entrepreneurial spirit, I decided to try my hand at selling my own crocheted creations. With her encouragement, I set up a small booth at the same local craft fair where she showcased her work. The response was overwhelming, and I quickly realized that my passion could also be a source of income. Word spread about my talent, and soon I found myself taking custom orders from classmates, friends, and even people in the community. Each piece I crafted told a story, and customers were drawn to the idea of owning something handmade and unique. As my small business grew, so did my skills and creativity. I began experimenting with different yarn textures, colors, and patterns, pushing the boundaries of traditional crochet. My creations evolved from simple scarves and blankets to intricate wearables and home decor items. The positive feedback and repeat customers fueled my determination to refine my craft further. When I started to earn significant money, my grandmother suggested that I should have a savings account so I could save this money for college. When I talked with my parents about this, their eyes widened in shock hearing about what I had been earning. Until then, they thought it was just my stupid hobby, but when they realized that I was earning quite well for someone of my age, they vehemently refused. My dad threatened to burn all my pieces and told me how he wasn't working so hard to pay for my education for me to waste my time on these stupid things, and my mother told me that I was banned from going to my grandma's place. They demanded that I give them the money that I earned, but when I told them that it was all with grandma, they called her up and started to yell at her. When my grandma found out that they were trying to steal my money from me, she basically refused to give them anything, while my parents screamed at her about how they quote-unquote deserved every cent. This is how I realized that my parents had never changed over the years. They were very much the same, selfish and self-serving. I could not just give up my passion for crocheting, and I wasn't going to lose out on earning money from this successful side business, which could potentially help me through college. Seeing how my parents were behaving, there was a good chance they might not even send me to college, so I needed to take matters into my own hands and work for my future. I had to come up with a plan so I could go to my grandma's place every weekend and work on my designs. I started to lie to my parents and tell them how I was spending time and sleeping over at my best friend's place, who also knew about the entire situation with my parents and supported me. I would then go to my grandma's place and we would crochet away so we could fill in the pouring orders from our clients. While my grandma continued to play a pivotal role in building my business, I also embraced different online platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to reach a broader audience. Social media became a powerful tool for showcasing my work and connecting with fellow artisans. The digital realm opened up endless possibilities, allowing me to share my passion with a global community. As the years passed, my small booth at the local craft fair transformed into a thriving online business. My grandmother helped me open a bank account with her as a co-owner of the account. I trusted my grandma inexplicably, and it was thanks to her that I could save up all the money I was earning for my college. My own grandma believed in me when my own parents wanted to just take away my money for their own use. Once, my mother went through my phone without me knowing about it, and she found out about my online business and how I was still operating it behind their back. This resulted in a huge fight with my parents, screaming at me and my grandma. They demanded that I would draw all the money I had earned and give it to them, since they had raised me and taken care of me all my life. I was on the verge of tears while trying to make them understand that this was for my college and that I wasn't really doing any harm to anyone. My dad screamed that I had gone behind their back and that he could not trust me anymore. My mother asked me to delete my Instagram page and stood right next to me to check if I was really deleting it. I cleverly deactivated my account instead, so that later I could activate my account once I was free from my parents. Then, they implemented strict phone restrictions from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. They also started tracking my location and monitoring my entire internet history, with notifications triggered if I searched for anything deemed bad, even innocuous things like shopping for underwear. I was allowed to go out with my friends only twice a week, but I had to come straight home afterwards, otherwise they would call me and my friends multiple times. Occasionally, I was allowed to hang out with my grandma for a couple of hours after school, but they banned me from doing any crocheting with her, otherwise they threatened to take away my phone and internet access. There were so many days that I just wanted to run away, but I was still 17 and had no way out. I requested my parents to let me have a part-time job at the local cafe, which they allowed, but told me that I had to pay them 30% of what I was earning. I agreed without any fights. I would give them 30% of my earnings every week, and the rest 70% I would give to my grandma to deposit in my bank account. My parents would continue to make my life difficult by regularly barging into my room at odd times to check my room, go through my chats and emails, and monitor my location. If I didn't listen to them or follow their rules, I was either grounded or they would force me to give them more of my earnings that week. Regardless of what my parents were putting me through, I concentrated on working hard at school and getting good grades. I knew that I needed to get into a good college to escape this life, so I worked my ass off. The night before I was going to turn 18, I packed up whatever it was that I had bought for myself and left other things like my clothes and my phone in my room. I made sure to wipe my phone clean so they would not find out anything about me. I also knew my parents would not allow me to take anything that they had brought for me, so I didn't take any of their stuff. The plan was already set. My grandma came to pick me up early in the morning so I could finally move in with her. My parents were shocked to see me moving out and started fighting with my grandma, saying that they were going to involve the police. I told them to go ahead since I was 18 now and I could do whatever I wanted. My parents then tried to blackmail me and said how they would tell everyone about what an ungrateful daughter I was and that everyone would shun me for leaving my parents, but I did not care. They even threatened that they would not help me for college, but I just smiled since I had saved up enough and was even up for a scholarship, so I no longer needed their help. As I walked out of the house, I felt a mix of fear, relief, and determination. Little did I know, my journey was about to take an unexpected turn. The first few weeks at my grandma's place were a breath of fresh air. The strict restrictions were lifted, and I could finally breathe without the constant monitoring. The first thing I did was buy myself a new phone and get a new mobile number. Next, I went to the bank with my grandma and took all my relevant documents so I could convert my minor account to an individual account. I was so happy to finally get my own card and account where I no longer had to ask for anyone's permission. I also deactivated my Instagram account so I could get back to my crocheting business. My grandma was very supportive and even offered me a small space in her house to set up a makeshift studio so I could get back to crocheting. Just a week after I moved out of my parents' place, I found out from relatives and old neighbors that my parents had set up a party where they were finally celebrating their independence. Apparently, they were extremely happy that it was the start of their new family, free from the burden of having me around, and were telling people how they finally could live child-free. They had invited other child-free friends and had posted multiple pictures of them laughing and drinking throughout the night with not a care in the world. Initially, the news stung. The fact that my own parents were celebrating my absence just a week after I had left them, showcasing their newfound freedom, felt like a cruel twist of fate. My dad's parents were also shocked to hear them celebrating, and they tried to reach out to me. They would travel a lot in their RV, exploring around the country, so it had been years since I had talked with them. When they finally got my new number from one of my cousins, they immediately called me asking me about everything. I told them the truth about what had happened between me and my parents and how I had left home. They were shocked to hear how my parents had been abusing me. They questioned me why I didn't reach out to them for help, but I told them how my parents would monitor my phone, so I wasn't allowed to talk to a lot of people except a handful of friends of my grandma. This is when my dad's parents told me about how my parents never wanted me in the first place, but they thought they had changed over the years, so I moved in with my parents and begged me to forgive them for not being there for me through all this. They also talked with my grandma, who told them about the various fights she had with my parents in order to protect me. After this, my dad's parents took it upon themselves to tell each and every family member about what my parents had put me through. Slowly, the news spread through my relatives and family friends, and everyone started calling me and offering me their support. I was surprised to see how sympathetic everyone was to my plight. Some even offered me monetary compensation, but I would refuse and tell them about my crocheting business and how they could help me by spreading the word so I could get more clients. This is how my business started to slowly pick up. During this time, I had been accepted into my dream college with a full scholarship. My life was finally about to change for the better. It wasn't very far from my grandma's place, so I could come and visit her every weekend and spend time with her or work on my crocheting. My dad's parents decided to give me their old car, which needed a bit of repairing but was manageable, so it would be easier for me to come back to my grandma's place. During this time, one of my friends who had been working for a local newspaper reached out to me and asked me if she could write a story on me since there were not a lot of young entrepreneurs in our area who had their own business like me, and told me how my story could inspire other youngsters to find their own path. After some thinking, I agreed to sit for an interview. I honestly didn't think it was a big deal since my business still needed a lot of work, but nevertheless, I hoped that if there was a kid out there like me, stuck in a toxic environment, I hoped that they would read my story and feel inspired from it. When my story came out, I felt surreal to see my own story in the paper. I know it is a very small achievement to be featured in your local paper, but for the first time in a very long time, I felt proud of the fact that I had worked so hard on my business despite all the difficulties. My grandma was extremely proud of me, and other relatives and friends started reaching out to me, congratulating me for this success. This was a new feeling, since my parents had never supported me nor complimented me about my hard work while growing up. My parents must have read the story as well, so they called my grandma to scream at her about how I betrayed them by going behind their back. They told me and grandma that since I had started the business while still living with them, I needed to not only give them credit publicly, since relatives have been bashing them ever since I told them about their controlling behavior, but that I needed to share with them my profits as well. They threatened to take me to court, but my grandma told them that I had done all the business under her roof, so they could try going to court over it if they wanted to because they will lose. I was so pissed at how my parents were behaving that I wanted to scream and yell at them, but I knew I could not do that. So instead, I organized a small celebration and invited my close family members and friends so we could celebrate the success of my hard work and business. I was anyways going away for college, so I felt like I deserved one last hooray with people who genuinely loved me. We had a great time throughout the night. Of course, word got spread to my parents, and I don't know how, but they got my hands on my new number, so they have been texting me about how I am just an ungrateful daughter and about how they wish they never had me. My dad had even sent a long text about how he spent all his life providing for me, and yet here I was, wasting away my money by celebrating with other people. Am I the a-hole for having a party to celebrate with my loved ones when my parents also had a celebration after I moved out? When I posted my story on Reddit, I had no idea it would blow up in just a few days. I have seen my story on TikTok and it scares me that my parents might find out about this. For my sake, please pray that they don't find out anything. Now, as per the comments, I understand that a lot of people want me to block my parents permanently, and I plan on doing exactly that. However, I do want to send them a final email telling them about everything that they have put me through, so they know exactly what I have been going through. I'm not a doormat like some of you have been calling me. I'm just a kid who had extremely toxic parents, and it's difficult for me to drop them. Society always teaches about how our parents always want the best for us, but no one ever teaches us about what to do when you end up with toxic parents and how to cut them off. I understand if some of you are blaming me for letting my parents walk all over me, but please do understand that I am young, and I am learning slowly to stand up for myself. Hi everyone! Thank you to some of the people who have reached out to me with supportive messages and let me know about similar situations that they have gone through. Now, as I had updated earlier, I did write an email to my parents. My grandma also helped me pen down my thoughts more clearly. I'm just going to copy and paste the email content here. Dear Mom and Dad, I have spent a considerable amount of time reflecting on our past, present, and the potential future of our relationship. It's with a heavy heart that I've come to the realization that, for my own well-being and growth, I need to sever ties with you both. I have spent my entire childhood yearning for your love and attempting to meet your expectations, but for some reason, I was never enough. Over the years, I've worked tirelessly to understand the reasons behind your apparent dislike for me and strive to be accepted into your lives, but you both never accepted me. From the earliest memories, when Mom forced me to drink milk despite my allergies, to the times I felt like a stranger in my own home, your actions have shaped my perception of how toxic our family is. Yet through it all, I held on, hoping for a change, for a connection that never happened, unfortunately. When I found solace and purpose in crocheting thanks to Grandma's guidance, I thought it might bridge the gap between us. As I built my business, your attempts to undermine and control me only solidified my decision to break free from the toxic environment. Your insistence on claiming a share of my hard-earned money, threatening legal action, and attempting to control my celebrations only further highlight how toxic you all are for me. I want you to understand that this decision is not an act of revenge or an expression of anger. It's an act of self-preservation, a step towards building a life that is free from toxicity and filled with love and support that every child deserves. I harbor no ill will towards either of you, but I need to prioritize my mental and emotional well-being. I thank you both for pushing me to become independent and for underestimating the potential within me, and I wish you both the best in your future endeavors. I hope you both are finally happy without me. I request that you respect my decision to no further contact. Let us part ways amicably. I won't lie, I had tears while writing this email to my parents. I know that I should be strong and remember all the bad things they have done to me. But it's so hard to cut off your parents. As children, we are conditioned to love them, and it's difficult to come out of that thinking. After sending the email, I blocked them from everywhere. In a few days, I will be going away to college, so I'm a bit nervous about it. My grandma and my dad's parents are going to help me move into a new dormitory. I am excited about meeting new people and having new friends. To everyone asking, my crocheting business is doing well, and I won't quit it regardless of my college. I love making unique designs and this is my passion, so I will work hard to manage it with my studies. This is the only update I have for now. Wow, it's been 6 months since my last update. I can't believe it's been so long and how different my life is now. First and foremost, I am thriving in college. The classes are challenging, but I'm putting in the effort and maintaining good grades. I know in the long run, despite my crocheting business, I need a college degree to fall back on. I also have some incredible friends in college. Thanks to them, I even get more orders to crochet. College life has allowed me to explore new horizons and meet different people. It's a refreshing change from the isolation I felt back home. I even have a boyfriend now called Kyle. I mean, it's just been 2 months since we started dating, and we're still getting to know each other. He's a sweet guy, so we'll see how it goes. Every weekend, I make it a point to visit my grandma. We have been working from our makeshift studio to fulfill our crochet orders. The business is booming, and the positive response from our clients is overwhelming. It's amazing how pursuing my passion has not only provided me financial stability, but also a sense of purpose and fulfillment in my life. As for my parents, it's been a quiet 6 months. Since my heartfelt email, they haven't attempted to contact me. My grandparents informed me that my parents received a lot of flack from everyone, hence they decided to sell everything and move out of the country, likely seeking a fresh start away. I don't know where they are, and truth be told, I don't really care. The fact that they chose to leave without any attempt of reconciliation or even a single apology speaks volumes. I genuinely hope that they find happiness wherever they have gone and can pursue the things that they have always wanted to do. It's time for me to focus on my own journey and continue building the life that I have always dreamed of. I want to express my gratitude to all of you who have been following my story and offering words of encouragement. Your support has meant the world to me. If there's one lesson I have learned through all this, it's the importance of surrounding yourself with people who uplift and believe in you. Thanks to my grandma and friends who believed in me, this will probably be my last update. Thank you, everyone. That was it for today's story. Thank you very much for listening. Smash that like button for me and subscribe for more stories. Thanks again, and we'll be seeing you in the next one.